Raymond Stover.
Noah Cease.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning to you.
Happy Friday.
It's a good day, my friend.
It is a good day. So we have a bunch of stuff to talk about today, especially some of the things that we're offering to our customers, some of the things that they may not know about, some of the things that the public might not know about. And then we're going to do a little live demo. We're going to talk about some of the pain points in the industry, some of the pain points with customers that show up at our front door, mentioned all the time. And then we're going to just proceed through a little bit of a conversation and try and get some of this content out.
Sounds like a good plan.
Sound good?
Absolutely.
All right. So we are My Call Cloud, right? We've been in business since 2011, 2012. And so about 13, we're going on 14 years. And we've got a bunch of different things that we've produced across the time frame, right? To solve all sorts of myriads of problems. Right. A lot of our customers show up and you know what they tell us, right? They say, we're not getting any support. They're not getting any support from their current call center provider. They'll put a support request in or they'll have an issue and it's just almost impossible for them to get help at this point. So one of the key things that our customers show up with or our prospects show up with is, do you provide support? Is it email only? No, it's not email only. We do call in support. We do email support as well. And then even on some cases, we've done chat support, Skype, WhatsApp.
But that's more driven by client desire, right?
Right.
We are open, during Monday through Friday for support.
Yeah.
Our clients get to call in. They get to be a big fish in a small pond. They get their voices heard. And
exactly. Yeah. And that, those 500-pound gorillas and all their fees and people can't get support, right? So it's just bizarre when people show up and ask us these questions. So and there's some funny things that come out of this, like with other software, I needed an IT, a project manager, and divine intervention.
That was a quote from someone. I didn't catch that. That's a great quote. They needed some divine intervention to help with their service provider, right? They're paying big money for these providers.
Divine intervention. That's funny. And then with My Call Cloud, I can just log in.
That's right.
Right. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, I heard a gentleman day before yesterday said, Raymond, with My Call Cloud, you guys are just always on. My agents come in, they log in, and it's never, in him, it's, and we too, we admit that, from time to time things happen, but, we overcome those. That's very short-lived instances of interruptions. And, by and large, we are up.
And we have customers that have been up for 758 days, longer than that. In some cases with no downtime at all. Now we'll knock on wood there a little bit because that can always happen, right? And throughout the last 13 years, we've had a couple situations, but it's been pretty rare.
Yeah, our uptime is phenomenal.
We do a pretty good job at uptime for sure. All right, and here's another quote that came through too. Using other call center software is like trying to fly a plane with flip switches. My Call Cloud is the autopilot. So right. That's kind of a fun.
We help people set up their system, right? They tell us what they want. We listen. We do the project management. We do the configuration management and get them up and going. That comment about, getting them up and going, right? We can get small systems up and going same week, more complicated systems with integrations with CRMs and whatnot, a couple weeks. 3 weeks up and going, $500 as opposed to $10,000 in several months. And you got to wait just to be in the pipeline for some of these, some of our competitors. Your implementation sometimes doesn't start for a couple of months. It's mind blowing to me.
Yeah. Like, are you finding deployment agents as not timely or efficient, right? That is another thing that always comes to the table is just getting the agent deployment to the user that needs to use the software that's one of the biggest pain points we've here as well, right? We can not get our project going. We just can't get the whatever running correctly. And, so we offer a great solution for that, right? We offer a web deployment only for the rep. They just have to use the Edge browser or Chrome or Firefox. They have to use some modern technology in order to log in, but we're going to show people how that works today.
And the Safari browser too, for those people that that like the Apple products.
The Macs, the Mac users of the world. Exactly.
They are definitely out there, and they need the solutions too. So
we're going to dive right in. We're going to show people how to log in to an agent user.
Yeah. So stated another way, Noah, like it used to be that to get the agents up and going, an IT person would have to go and touch each workstation. They would have to install a package. They would have to install a soft phone or an executable or whatever the thing was to get the connects to happen when the agent's logging into the dialer.
Right.
And here you guys have absolutely built the technology to make it a install-less ramp up.
Zero install agent deployment.
Yeah.
Right.
So for some of our clients, like, well, we don't use this browser. We got to, we have to install Chrome or something. That's the biggest hurdle they have.
Yeah, exactly.
The floor manager can manage that.
That's not tough. Yeah, exactly. And so we've been in the space a long time too, right? So I think the senior staff here, at least, I think we got over almost 90 years of experience, right?
Cumulative? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Pushing 100 years potentially.
Yeah, I think we're over 100 years of
we've
combined experience.
we've all been in the call center space since the early 2000s.
When it comes down to plugging in wires and punching down 66 blocks and Amphenol cables and T1s and PRIs and just regular POTS lines too, plain old telephone service, right? Just
hooking up fax machines. The intercoms too, right? We used to do that.
We did all that stuff, and it was fun. But that gave us the base that we needed to understand what the complexities were for the space and how you get out of those complexities and what you need to design around easy deployments and solid uptime and great infrastructure and all of those key pieces that make the core technology that's used for your business make you money. Right?
Absolutely. Well, it's a classic thing. If we are doing a good job, it appears seamless to the end user. It appears seamless to the floor managers. Just get the agents, log in, make it happen. And when you're doing it right, there's no hiccups. They just log in, they get to work.
Exactly. There's a little anecdotal story that came to my mind just a moment ago. And I was talking to one of the customers that we had that was running an EDU room. So he's running calls to find, people that are interested in colleges, and then those colleges could, follow up with those prospects and
help put them into the right program for their educational desires.
Exactly. And this guy ended up buying a boat. He ended up buying a $250,000 boat to go fishing on because his ROI was there, right? It was solid. He made money, and then he eventually sold his room for a couple $1 million. So it was, those stories are not few and far between for us. Another one of our customers just bought a mansion in Montana, right? His ROI is extremely high. His uptime is extremely high. Now, everybody's got challenges and everybody's got projects that they need to work on or specialties for their call center, and we specialize in that as well, right? So we will do custom deployments. We'll build a piece of software or a module or something specific for that particular call center. And we've built a bunch of those in the past. Right.
Absolutely. And we still are, right? Our quota management tool has been revised multiple times based on the client needs.
Exactly. And some of the other great products we have out there, like SMS management and communication management, right? So a manager can actually look at all the SMSs coming in and out of the call center and can help respond or redirect communication in a particular different way, right? DID management, managing your caller IDs and what sort of phone numbers you have on the system. Spam number reporting. That's a new one that we just rolled out.
Yeah, and we've put a bunch of effort into it, and it's a very nice product. We're getting direct feedback from the telco. We're attacking it both passively by watching what's coming back into our network on the telco side for the feedback, and we're also proactively testing on outbound. So, and then we're reporting on it, and people can make intelligent decisions on what they want to keep, what they want to rest for their phone numbers. And we also have developed other interesting tools behind the scenes, right? Everybody wants the easy button. And so that's one of the items that we built behind the scenes to help automatically manage the caller ID display.
Yeah, exactly. Another quote that I heard recently, it's like switching from a rotary phone to a smartphone, right? By Call Cloud, we just get it.
Right.
And we just get it.
Well, you make it easy for the agents. They just need to go ready. They need to be able to make their phone call. They need to be able to have those calls complete. They need to be able to process the data, intake the information. And then when they hit submit, behind the scenes, we're taking all that newly collected information. We're pushing it up to the CRM. We're pushing it up to the calendar invite. We're pushing it across to the partner if the call is being transferred off, right? That collected data resides now in our system. We have control of it.
Yep.
And the agent doesn't have to think about it a whole lot. They just have to disposition the call properly and manage their part of the call and rock and roll. They are off to the races. And the owner is making that ROI that, it's really interesting too. I'm going to take a quick side note from that.
Please.
Thank you. I have been saying for the past few years that we are a small business incubator, right?
Yeah.
These people that you were thinking of that we were speaking of, they have gone and built their business here on My Call Cloud. And then, some of them are building it to the point that they're selling it and they're going and retiring.
Right.
And then they come back to us again and start their next business venture.
That's
because
right.
they know we're going to help them at reasonable costs.
Yeah, we've had several of those for sure. And that's been pretty good too.
That's very cool. We have friendships with these people and we get to see their success and we get to celebrate and share in that.
And I was going to say, kind of in an absurd way, we dive in and help our customers, right? Relentlessly. But it's not absurd, right? This is what customers should be feeling. They should be feeling incubated. They should be feeling nurtured. We nurture our customers, right?
Yeah,
we make
absolutely.
sure that if you're a customer on My Call Cloud, you're taken care of.
And you get to talk to us, right? You get to talk with industry professionals who are on the front line and will consult and help provide. I can't tell you how many times we've provided really good advice to people.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's on the telephony side, but other times it's in process and procedure and it's in, the relationships, right? We do a lot of connecting and helping people make those connections. So if they need a technology partner outside of us, we open those doors and we help make those implementations happen.
And what a good segue to one of our products that we released a couple years, almost 3 years ago, Agent Script Builder, right? And so it brings up a funny quote that I just ran across the other day, and it's other platforms make you feel like you need a PhD to transfer a call. My Call Cloud makes it a button, which is absolutely true.
Right. And behind the scenes on that button, if we're not connecting with the far end, we disconnect that call. The agent doesn't have to manage that piece. And then we reattempt to the next provider or to the next number in line.
And this is everything that our Agent Script Builder does, right? So Agent Script Builder can have all the key things that you need in for the call transfer to the right party contact. Agents don't have to think about any of that. So it really eliminates a lot of human error. It provides a lot more productivity to the agent, which obviously adds to the ROI, right? In call centers, a lot of call centers I look at as manufacturing shops. In a manufacturing shop, if you can produce the parts and pieces fast and efficiently without much downtime, then you produce more parts, right? You produce more sales, you produce more transfers, you produce more, all of those things that are positive when you have a good time efficiency, right?
Absolutely.
I know.
Yeah. And it runs smoothly. It runs efficiently. And that's, getting back to the ASB, one of the things about, you had mentioned the agents don't have to think about a whole lot. One of the architecture fundamentals that when we were building it was that we remove a lot of choices for the agents. They don't have to scan through and find the right piece. We just have them ask the next question, yes, no, yes, no. And so it's basically walking them down the garden path. They get to ask the question of the consumer answers, they take that in, and then it's saved, and they move on to the next question. And depending on what the responses were prior, it leads that call to the next step. And so when the agent goes to hit the next button for the call transfer, all that information is already collected, and then it's sent to the right place with the right information. And that way on the receiving side, they can pick up the phone and say, "Hi, is this John Smith?" "Yes, hi." And it just makes for a smooth handoff. And in the real world, the consumer, they don't want a clunky experience. If they're interested in buying a product, they
want that call transfer quick.
They want a smooth process.
They want a smooth process.
They don't have to repeat themselves, right? The receiving side doesn't have to re-ask the same questions because we have collected that and we have shared that and they have it at their disposal, and then they can go on to the next step.
And we're talking about things like first, last name, address, city, state, zip, what products they're interested in. We can package all of that into an API and then send it to a third-party transfer, for fulfillment purposes and whatever that third-party fulfillment center might need for that particular phone call. That all can be packaged and sent in an API post.
Absolutely.
Request to them.
And for us, that's bread and butter for what we do. It doesn't take us weeks and months to discover and build. It takes us, a couple days, discover, build, start test casing, and put it in production, right? You're talking.
And there's not big price tags on these things either. So if you need something to happen like an API post, we're not talking about a $10,000 project in months. We're talking about a handful of human hours to configure the post request. And you can even do this in Script Builder manually on your own as a customer. Of course, if you need some guidance, you can reach out and get guidance from us. But
the tools are in there. It's just advanced. And a lot of folks don't necessarily go to that level of technical, and they ask us to do that. So
exactly. Yeah. People don't build APIs every day. That's not their core thing that they do. Now, if there is a bit of a nerd at the call center that knows how to do that, then that's totally available to that customer as well.
100%. Yeah, it blows my mind. I've used that phrase a couple times, but I'm thinking back to when I worked for another call center solution provider, and they were not one of the big ones. They were sort of a mid-size, small enterprise provider. Mm-hmm. And they would charge $12,000 to $16,000 for a report that was not that difficult.
Right.
It astounds me that they would get away with that and the people would pay for it. And, I sleep well at night here at my call cloud, knowing that, most reports are, a few $100s, depending on what the requirements are.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing is that those projects, it kind of all boils down to that ROI that we're talking about, right? When you're spending $12,000 or $15,000 on a report that you need to run your business better, that just comes right off your bottom line, right? So you're not taking that money to the bank. You're just sending it to your service provider. And it's really not great value exchange either for a report. Like you're saying, that should only take a handful of hours to build, to produce, automate, email, FTP, all of those things that we've done for our customers.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be super pretty and presentable. It has to be functional. It has to have the data.
Can I get the data?
Can I make decisionable actions based on the data that I'm looking at?
Yeah. Can I make business decisions based on a report that only took a handful of hours to build and didn't take a whole lot out of your ROI? Right.
Right. Or can my call cloud build this report? I need to report to my sub-clients every month. I have to give them a report of our calling activities.
Or daily.
Or weekly. Absolutely.
Or hourly.
Yeah. And we can build it. And we've done it many times before.
We have. Well, let's show people how to log in, what that single login feels like, that single agent, the deployment for the agent side of the call center itself, and just show people how easy that is. That sound good?
Yeah, the agent, so when a new client comes on, the agents are onboarding, there's no install. They can just get to work. They just need to know their username and password. Yeah, go ahead and show us, Noah.
Let's show. All right, so here's my call cloud. This is just our website. If anybody wants to check that out, it's mycallcloud.com. And this is an agent login. I'm just going to hit the submit button.
Please
select the campaign after you put in your username password.
Yep. Just select the campaign, click agent web phone.
The headset is now connected and you are now ready to take calls.
You are currently the only person in this conference.
You get a nice audio announcement, and you can see the web phone is popped up over here on the right-hand side, and you've got a green indicator that means that you're live. And then you hear an audio prompt as well, and I'm sure our audience has heard that as well just a moment ago. So the agent interface is simply here. Script tab is going to have a script of what you're looking at potentially as far as your script environment goes, or some sort of, this happens to be a survey. right? So,
and it's a logic branching survey, sort of like what we were talking about earlier. Make it easy for the agents. This isn't exactly what we were speaking of, but this is a logic branching script. So if you click on yes, the next step is provided to the agent. And if they say no, well, then on the next, they wrap up the call. So it walks the agent down the garden path. All they have to do is ask the question and collect the response.
And the dispositions are right there on the screen, so the agent doesn't have to hit the hang up button. They can click the dispo, they can hit the submit button, and then they're off to their next call. Now, how much time did that save an agent? 15 seconds? 10? Okay. Now multiply that by 10,000 calls per month. How many seconds did you just save? 100,000 seconds, right?
Per agent.
And that's hours and hours of time. So if we're doing 15, if we're saving 100,000 seconds per month, for example, and we divide that by 3,600 seconds per hour, right? It's not 3,600 seconds per hour. Yeah, it is 3,600 seconds per hour. We just saved you 27 hours of productivity time. Per
month, per agent.
Per month. So now how many more sales can an agent make with 27 extra hours of time? Two sales per hour, or whatever your sales per hour metric is. Okay, so now I've made another 2 sales per hour per agent. That's an extra 55 sales per agent per month, just utilizing efficient things like one-click hang up,
That's right.
Dispo submit.
And in the background on the disposition page, or on the disposition choices that the agents have, if behind the scenes when the agent was collecting information on these type of survey calls, if there's important information that's flagged for management, right? The consumer's very upset, or the consumer's very happy, or the consumer wants a callback, behind the scenes for this script, the agent doesn't have to touch it, but a summary email goes up to management for that institution, and they know to follow up with the consumer, and they know exactly what the consumer was thinking because the agent had collected that information. And so it's a full life cycle for, caring for the customer and being able to know when to call them back or when to pat the employees on the back for a job well done, because sometimes that feedback is positive from the consumer. And like I say, it's automatically fed up to management.
Exactly. So the agent interface, it's a one-click install. You go to your website, you get a username and password that gets assigned. Agent's logged in, it's ready to go. Not tough, not challenging. This is a funny quote I heard the other day. Other platforms promise cloud-based, but it feels like a storm of frustration. My call cloud has a smooth skies and clear calls. Which is true too. We use the highest possible audio codec that we can use in the industry on a SIP-to-SIP call, or even, regular PSTN calls used to be 64K per second. That's a little nerdy for everybody out there, but that means we're using a non-compressed codec, which means you get audio quality similar to what you're hearing right here on the podcast, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The architecture solutions that have been built here at My Call Cloud, the call quality is of paramount importance. And
we hear that
it
all
is
the
something
time.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
Why are your calls so clear?
It sounds better sound quality than I've had on any dialer ever.
Right.
And that's a common comment that we hear. We're not trying to save a few pennies. You don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish, right? The audio quality is of paramount importance, so we make sure that happens. It's good, clear audio every time.
When an agent gets a call and they can't understand the call, right, and they have to have somebody repeat things over and over and over again, what does that do? It decreases the efficiency in the manufacturing center, in the call center, right? So if you can keep the call quality high, and the agent doesn't have to have the customer repeat themselves 4 or 5 times, like you have had this personal experience, I guarantee it, from your credit card company. You call them, they need some information from you. I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
Or as a consumer,
Yeah.
right? I call into these other companies, and the agent on the far end, their audio is breaking up. It's the consumer asking the agent that same question. What did you say? Could you repeat yourself again? It's not just language barriers or accent barriers. Oftentimes it's call quality barriers, and it is surmountable, and it's not an issue here in our shop.
Well, here's a good real world example. I needed to book a car with Avis, right? And now Avis is not on our platform, but maybe they should be, right? So I called into Avis, talked to a representative. We actually spent 30 minutes booking the car because, one, she couldn't hear me for whatever reason. I could hear her okay. She wasn't breaking up. There was no problem on my end, but she clearly couldn't hear what I was saying.
Were you in a quiet environment?
I was in a quiet environment in a normalized area, just, in the kitchen in my place.
Yeah, you have good cellular coverage there. You were on your cell phone. Yeah.
And she just couldn't hear me very well. And I'm thinking to myself, I know they're using a compressed codec. I know they're probably running on 5.9, or maybe you call into the Apple call center, right? And it's the same thing, right? You call into Apple, and the customer service rep has to have you repeat yourself over and over again to get the information you need to get help with your Apple device or with your Mac or your iBook, whatever you're using.
Yeah, and
your
agents,
iPod. I was going to say iPod.
Well, the agents have already a difficult enough time as it is, keeping engagement, and, especially if they're working for prospecting and sales. And if they cannot have a good, clear conversation, the consumer is getting frustrated. You wanted to be on that call with Avis, so you stayed on the call.
Yeah.
You persevered to get that reservation.
Exactly.
But if it's a prospecting call and you can't communicate, you can't hear what they're saying.
Impossible.
Yeah, the consumer's hanging up.
Exactly.
And that poor agent is back to square one, trying to find somebody that will talk to them.
Yeah, exactly.
And if it's that poor audio quality, once again,
Yeah, exactly.
So
I know.
it's one of the reasons people come over here, and that we get the word of mouth referrals that we do.
Yeah. So how do people onboard with My Call Cloud? How do you get somebody to your desk in order to talk them through a scenario in a deployment that makes sense to them? They have to book a demo, right? So go to My Call Cloud. If you're interested in hopping on board with a call center provider that really cares about your business and nurtures you, and make sure that you get the consulting you need in order to get your efficiency to increase your ROI and buy your own boat, reach out to mycallcloud.com, book a demo, and Raymond will be happy to walk you through our software solutions and consult with you in a natural way and get you onboarded quickly. Thanks, Raymond. I appreciate your time this morning. Let's have a great Friday.
Rock and roll.
Bye, everybody.